This is a cricket podcast.
The summer of cricket does start with the T20 World Cup.
Two mates obsessed with the game.
I thought you were going to ask to be his personal physio.
Covering all the on-field action.
You know, you say England have got an easy game starting off. Afghanistan have one of the better T20 teams outside of the top four.
This is the Back of a Length podcast.
Oh, Mark, we are back. We are the Back of a Length podcast, and we're here to bring you the epic summer of cricket. How are you, Mark?
I'm good, Renee. It feels like it's been a long, long winter.
Oh, well, it does feel like it's been a long winter here in New Zealand, but cricket didn't stop. The boys have been on the road since May, playing in England, playing in Ireland, playing in the West Indies, playing in Australia, and it has been wonderful to watch them. Especially my boy Michael Rippon. I can't wait to see him back in action this summer.
Speaking of Michael Rippon, we have something new for season 2, especially for you, Renee.
Do we?
That is the Michael Rippon klaxon. So every time you say Michael Rippon, that baby's going to sound, and we're going to count it up at the end of the season. So what I want you guys to do on socials, we're going to put out a bit of a quiz after this episode goes out. How many times do you think that klaxon will be used this series?
Oh my gosh, this podcast is going to sound horrific.
Well, that's all on you. It depends how many times you say Michael Rippon, how many times he makes it into our podcast this season.
Look, I'm sure
Which
it's
I'm going to say
be...
is a lot because you follow each other now on Twitter and Instagram, and I think you're basically just best mates.
Pretty much. Look, the good news is that Michael Rippon probably won't be mentioned for a little while because the summer of cricket does start with the T20 World Cup this weekend.
Is he in the squad?
He's not in the squad.
What's his name?
No.
Worth a try.
It was not worth a try.
Yeah, speaking of the T20 World Cup, that is underway in Australia at the moment, going through the qualifying phases to finalise the group stages. We've got 8 teams who are trying to qualify for the Super 12s and will join the 8 teams already in those groups.
That is correct. The first game of the Super 12 series, the Super 12 League as it is called, will be a repeat of last year's final, New Zealand versus Australia. That is this Saturday. Let's take a look at the New Zealand team. From last year, Mark, New Zealand have made 3 changes. In 2021, we had Kyle Jamieson, Tim Seifert and Todd Astle in the team. They will not feature this year. Coming in for them, we have Lockie Ferguson, who was supposed to be in 2021, but was ruled out due to injury. Basically, a replacement for Kyle Jamieson, who is now injured.
Yeah, I remember Ferguson, he was playing the warm-up games, and I think it was the last warm-up game he got injured and had to drop out of the squad. So, yeah, hopefully he can keep himself fit because he is an absolute weapon. Out-and-out
pace, a really good inclusion in the squad. Finn Allen comes in for Tim Seifert, which I think is just a brilliant move.
Yeah, you advocated for Finn Allen to be in the Black Cap squad for quite a while now, and obviously he's had a few chances and takes them pretty well. He's a firecracker at the start of at the top of the order there. I find, and if he can fire, he can definitely get New Zealand above the run rate pretty quickly.
Absolutely, he can. I also find he is a smarter cricketer than Tim Seifert. Tim Seifert seemed to get a little bit cheeky sometimes. His partner wondered what he was doing, but Finn Allen is a genius on the field. He's got a bright future in front of him, hopefully starting with a firecracker performance at this World Cup. I will make one comment about not having Tim Seifert in this squad. New Zealand will only have Devon Conway as a true wicketkeeper. So if anything happens, New Zealand might find themselves in a pickle about who to put behind the stumps.
But we did see Finn Allen last season keeping 4 during the Dream 11 Super Smash. So whilst it's not ideal, there are options.
There are.
I mean, I think if you think about Devon Conway, he's not a specialist keeper, is he? Like he's not your BJ Watlings or your Tim Seiferts or your Tom Blundells. So I think it's a bit of a horses for courses and trying to get both of those players in the squad. But yeah, there's definitely options keeping there.
Definitely. And then we see Michael Bracewell coming in for Todd Astle, which is no surprise at all. Todd Astle in the twilight of his career, really. And Michael Bracewell has really proved himself on the international stage in the past few months. Had a brilliant series recently against Pakistan.
Yeah, Yeah, he's a good player. One of those all-rounders that I think will go well in Australia. He likes the pace. I think he likes the bounce. So yeah, absolutely, absolute gun player to come into the team.
Really excited. So on paper, this is an incredibly strong team. They're joined by, you know, players that played 12 months ago in the World Cup. They've got, as we said, Alan at the top of the order there, along with Glenn Phillips, who is an absolute smash hitter. Brilliant player, really. He's got cool head of Conway, and we've got bundles and bundles of experience with Williamson, Guptill, Southey, Bolt, Ferguson, Milne, Santner, Daryl Mitchell in this team. On paper, this is a brilliant team.
It is a brilliant team. What worries me about this team is that the bowlers do seem a little bit under par at the moment. You look at the bowling attack of like Southey, Bolt, Ferguson, Milne, and I'll go more for Southey and Bolt because they're your go-to bowlers. They do seem to be a little bit out of form. But, you know, knowing those two, form is temporary, class is permanent. This is the type of tournament where they will really shine.
Yeah, I hope they do. I'd also say that having watched these players on the field for the past 12 months, they're not at their best since they've left the UAE. They've had some technique issues with some players being out of form, particularly Kane Williamson, although has found himself recently in this recent tri-series in New Zealand. A few on-field oopsies, as I've said. A few little drop catches, miscommunication running between wickets. And of course, there's been a lot of injuries to this squad.
Yeah, the fielding is definitely a concern going into this tournament because that's the one thing that New Zealand have always done well. They've always been good fielders. But yeah, as I say, hopefully the last 6 months it's been an opportunity to get all of that out so that you can go into the tournament and fire at 100%.
Yes, the only other concern is Mitchell, Ferguson and Milne all carrying injuries as we head into the World Cup. Now, Mark, I was going to Adam Milne, let's just talk about Adam Milne for a second, because he has been in and out of the squad for a number of years. He has come back from injury and played his first games last week for the first time since March. Now, I was thinking I could write to New Zealand Cricket and say, could I be like Adam Milne's personal injury officer and watch out and make sure that Adam Milne doesn't get injured?
Given some of the comments you made on last season's podcast, I was wondering where that was going. I thought you were going to ask to be his personal physio. Yeah, I guess, you know, hopefully New Zealand Cricket could open up a position for you to be their injury officer and make sure that he's all tickety-boo before every game.
I'm here for it. I am here for it. Well, let's see if he makes the field this Saturday when the Black Caps will take on Australia. Let's have a little bit of a peek at that Australia team. Mark, 4 weeks ago, I would have said this is the best team in the world. They're unstoppable. Yeah. They should win. But last few weeks, something's happened.
Yeah. So I watched a bit of the England-Australia series, which was a prelude to the World Cup, and what's been really interesting is that they don't seem to have a settled top order.
No, they don't.
So they will open with David Warner, but they've been trying Cameron Green up at the top of the order. Aaron Finch dropping down to 4 or 5. That has not worked, and you wonder why they've been trying that so close to a tournament.
What I don't understand, Mark, just to jump in, is that Cameron Green is not actually named in their T20 squad. So he has been playing these games.
It made absolutely no sense whatsoever. If you're playing him and you're trying him in different positions, why would you not be trying somebody who's actually in the squad? It confused me. I know it confused the commentators that were on Channel 9 or whatever it is in Australia. So it'll be interesting to see how they set up. You imagine Finch will move back to the top of the order, but he's massively out of form at the moment. David Warner, he will either get you quick fire 80 or not too many at all. Mitchell Marsh is an interesting one. He seems to be in really good form at the moment.
He is,
but it leaves no place for Steve Smith.
That is correct, but I think you would bring in Mitchell Marsh. He was the hero at the World Cup last year. He basically won it for Australia. So as soon as you basically get down to 5 to 11, then the Australian team just writes itself, and their bowling attack is ferocious.
still the best in the world for me. And
Don't say things like that. Makes me physically ill.
Sorry, yeah. I think they're just so good because they've played together for so long now. They know each other's game. They know how to bowl to, each other's tactics and stuff like that. They just know what they need to do. They go out there and generally, more often than not, they do it.
Absolutely. Well, they are playing at home. They are the defending champions. Will the pressure get too much or will they thrive? We will wait and see. So New Zealand, Australia are in Pool A along with England.
Oh, the winners. Yeah, Australia won't win it. Screw
winners
them.
2B, we should say.
We've got a good squad, I think.
What a brilliant squad.
Yeah, I think, we should have won it last year for me. Had we not have had a couple of brain farts in the semi-final against New Zealand, I think we probably would have gone on to beat Australia in the final. But yeah, we've got power hitters at the top. Alex Hales back into the fold under Joss Butler's captaincy. He was out of the reckoning for about 2 years due to some misdemeanours and Owen Morgan deciding that he didn't want him around the squad. He is an absolute gun player at the top of the order. You've got Joss Butler, David Millan's in great form, Liam Livingston at 4, Ben Stokes. You go through the team and it's just, there's absolute superstars all the way through. And then the bowling. And the bowling attack, you've got Adil Rashid, one of the best spinners in the world, Mark Wood, who's bowling 97, 98 miles an hour, which on Australian pitches is, that pace and bounce is going to trouble quite a few batsmen. Reece Topley, left arm swinger, we've got strength in every position, but we also have quite good depth as well. So for me, and I am being biased obviously, but I think we should be favourites.
I think England have a very, very strong team. They start their World Cup campaign with Afghanistan, so a little bit of an easy start to the tournament, you might say, but hopefully might get put on their toes a little bit if we have a little bit of a look at that Afghanistan team. So they've got Rashid Khan, who is a superstar.
The best spinner in world cricket. I said Adil Rashid was up there, but yeah, Rashid Khan can win a game by himself. He's a great player. A lot will rest on his shoulders. He's still quite young, but it feels like he's been around forever.
It does, and he has played a lot of games in Australia with the Big Bash, so he should actually be on familiar ground. Yeah,
absolutely. They have, you're saying England have got an easy game starting off. I don't know if I'd necessarily agree with that. Afghanistan have one of the better T20 teams outside of the top 4. Top 4 being Australia, England, New Zealand, and possibly India being the other one. So I think Afghanistan have as good a chance as any outside of that top 4 to break into those positions. Looking on to Pool B, we've got a couple of interested teams here, but this pool, it's an interesting pool because you look at India, they're probably the standout in that group. They've got a lot of experience. They're the number 1 ranked team. Do they go particularly well in Australian conditions? They played a lot of home T20s, which might be where they've got their ranking from at the moment. But you do worry a little bit. A few inexperienced players, whether the pace and bounce of Australia will trouble them, will hurry them up a little bit. Well,
they just obviously had a series against Australia in India and did pretty well. But before that, they actually lost the Asia Cup to Sri Lanka and to Pakistan. So they're in and out of form at the moment. I just watch India and I get this feeling that if they go into a tough situation where they must win, whether it's like a final pool game or even if they do make the semi-finals, I just get this feeling they're going to crumble under pressure.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. They always have pressure on them. Obviously, the Indian fans are so expectant that they should win pretty much every game that they play. But I just don't see too many standout players. Virat Kohli, for me, hasn't been in great form for a long time now. So you're kind of looking at Hardik Pandya is probably their best player at the moment, but he's very hit and miss. He's pretty similar to David Warner actually for Australia. He's going to score you big runs or going to score you no runs. There's no sort of in between. You do wonder if India are in a tight chase where they need, say, 7 and over off the last 5 overs, whether they're going to try and smash it at the park or whether they are going to be able to manage that rate. So it'll be interesting to see. Pakistan is another team in that in that group, which is again just hit and miss. They played England in Pakistan last month and besides Babar Azam and Mohamed Rizwan, there wasn't really a lot coming through. They are two absolutely outstanding players at the moment in really, really good form. Pakistan, just an interesting one. You could see them beating everybody or beating nobody, and I think that's been the case actually for Pakistan for quite a while now.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I think they have the best opening pair in the tournament with Babar Azam and Mohamed Rizwan. They recently took the Tri-Series here in New Zealand, so I think they could go far, but they also, as soon as you start getting down the order, you lose a little bit of intensity, really. One thing I wanted to point out about Pakistan is they often take their games down to the last few balls. Recently, they played Bangladesh in that Tri-Series here in New Zealand, and they won with one ball to spare. You'll also remember back in 2019, they didn't make the World Cup semi-finals because of their net run rate, which is so important in a World Cup. So a genuine weakness for Pakistan is that they are slow.
Yeah, they do have a few players like Babar Azam as an accumulator. Mohamed Rizwan, they've got a lot of players who play Test cricket, 50 over and T20 cricket, whereas you look at the likes of the England team, for example, they're a specialist T20 side, so their net run rate is never going to be an issue. You do wonder if Pakistan have that sort of crossover and whether they're just struggling to get that, just get it right in the T20 format. Because they have accumulators as opposed to really big hitters. Yeah,
that is possible, and this will be a tournament where big hitting is vital. But another team that can they go big is Bangladesh. 4 losses to Pakistan and New Zealand in the recent Tri-Series. They're ranked 10th in the ICC T20 rankings. Yes, they automatically qualified, but I don't see Bangladesh really going big.
No, they might cause an upset. Like you said earlier, if India get into a pressure situation, are they going to crumble under that pressure? And that's the type of game where Bangladesh probably would come out on top. But they're so reliant on Shakib.
Yeah, I mean, he is a captain. He does a captain's knock. He's brilliant, a leader from the front, but you can't put it all on his shoulders.
No, definitely not. They're going to need other players to step up, and I just don't know if they've got the players, to be honest.
We will wait and see. Rounding out that pool, automatic qualifiers are South Africa. And I got to say, Mark, South Africa are in a bit of a shambles.
I think South African cricket's been in a bit of a shambles for a while.
I mean, a very experienced team. They've got names that we've banged on about here on the podcast for all of last season, and we'll probably bang on again about this season. But they're just not there on the field. They've got a coach that is 1 foot out the door. He's heading to the ICC. They've been plagued with injuries. They've been plagued with issues off the field as well. So, and also we know that South Africa crumble under pressure at a World Cup. They didn't do it in 2015. They didn't do it at 2019 ODIs. I can't see them going far.
But yeah, I would say that South Africa, not one of the favourites for the tournament for good reason, but they do have a couple of good players. Obviously, David Miller is, one of their bigger players, one of their standout players. Aiden Markram has decent form behind him. They've got Kagiso Rabada, one of the good bowlers in the world at the moment. So they've got strong players. They just need to try and put it all together.
Miller and Aiden Markram both hitting hundreds off about 40 balls recently, so they have got some really big, really big hitters in there.
But it'll be an interesting watch.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. So I think really we look at all these squads, including potentially the West Indies and another qualifier coming through. There are 8 teams who could win this World Cup. There's probably 3 that should. But I was thinking about this, Mark. I said, who should win this World Cup? And I think based on all the cricket I've watched this winter, based on everything we've said, the team that wins the World Cup will do the basics of cricket right. They will take their catches. They will do good throwing at the stumps. They will back up overthrows. They will bowl at the death tightly and not give away too much runs. And they will communicate on the field.
Yeah, I think, especially in Australia as well, I think the team that gets off to the best power play will generally tend to win. So you're looking at those teams who have big hitters at the top of the order, the likes of Australia, England, for example, New Zealand to a degree. I don't see New Zealand having massive hitters. Devon Conway's a bit of an accumulator. Kane Williamson will probably try and bat the innings, so a lot of pressure then goes on to Finn Allen. But yeah, if anybody can get off to a cracker in the power play, that puts them ahead of the game, because Australia is a place where you can easily score 220 if you get off to a good power play. If you're trying to defend 220, or you're conversely trying to chase 220, that is a difficult task to do, because you know that you've got to go at 11 and over.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be an exciting month. We will have all the action here on the Back of a Length podcast. Oh, Mark, you didn't think that we weren't bringing back the first 11 of the week, were you?
I have not missed this over the last 6 months, I'll be honest.
Stop it.
Purely because I'm excited to see how many more 11s we can fit into the next 6 months.
Oh, we will fit many in, and we're going to start it with a firecracker first 11. This is the first 11 of World Cup moments to celebrate the World Cup coming up. So, and at 1, we have, of course, Martin Guptill in 2015, a double century, and that 2019 run out. That really was the reason New Zealand made the final.
Pretty sensational.
It was. And at 2, we have Alyssa Healy. She basically won the 2022 Women's World Cup for Australia with 170 first up. And at 3, Kane Williamson, 6s into the crowd in both 2015 and 2019, keeping New Zealand's chances of going out of the pool stages alive. And at 4, we have Herschel Gibbs hit 6 sixes in 1 over in a game in 2007. Carlos Braithwaite in at 5, 4 sixes to win the tournament for the West Indies in 2016. And at 6...
Don't remind me of that one. Oh, that was a tough watch.
And at 6, we have Grant Elliott, of course, hit that 6 into the crowd at Eden Park in 2015, making it into the semi-final, and we were celebrating in the stands. And at 7, Ben Stokes. Oh, I hate this one, but he did deflect the ball in 2019 to basically make it a tie and to go to a super over. So we
probably should just point out here that this isn't the best World Cup moments per se. No, this is defining World Cup moments. Defining
moments from both ODIs and T20s, if you hadn't picked that up. And at 8, Wasim Akram, 2 wickets consecutive, put England out of contention. And at 9, Shoaib Akhtar in 2003, the first bowler to bowl over 100 miles per hour in World Cup cricket. What a moment that was.
That was pretty insane.
Now close your ears for this one, Mark. And at 10, Tim Southee, 7 for 22 in the 2015 against England. And I think Mark may have been in the crowd.
I think that was one of the worst days of my life.
I think we've heard about that
I had quite a few beers and was just not very happy.
No, you weren't. And at 11, Anya Shrubsole in 2017, 6 wickets to win England the Women's World Cup final. And I have put in 12th man, a very, very special mention to Lockie Ferguson, who gave us a thumbs up from the side when we were at the 2019 game, New Zealand versus West Indies in Manchester.
I don't think we gave him much of a choice. It was borderline harassment at that stage, I think.
Hopefully we will see some more great moments at this upcoming T20 World Cup. All the action will be here. We are on socials as well, at Back of a Length, on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.
I am headed back to the UK on Saturday, so you will have the pleasure. I agree. You will have the pleasure of Renee for the next 3 weeks, who will also have a different guest on, I believe, every week, or maybe the same guest.
We'll see if anyone wants to come on.
Yeah, see who turns up.
It won't be Ed and Milne or Michael Rippon. I will guarantee that.
Oh, you never know, Michael Rippon. He's available. He's not doing much over the next month. There's about 4 Claxtons there. Happy days. So yeah, I will see you all in a month when we'll be absolutely ready to go with the New Zealand home summer.
All right, just keep in touch on the socials as mentioned. I'm Renee, that's Mark. This is the Back of a Length podcast.